All right. Hello, everybody. You can hear me? Okay, good. So tonight we're going to finish off Sadi Dalid and then study Daf Sadi He, and then a little bit of the beginning of Sadi Vav, hopefully. And if we accomplish that, we will finish the Perek. So that'll be exciting. That'll be the 10th Perek of Masechet Shabbat. Okay, so we have a number of topics tonight. A lot of them are about different melachot regarding making cheese and sweeping and braiding hair. And then we'll end with the whole section about Tumah and Tahara. Is it your favorite? Yeah. But we'll see. There's a couple of interesting sections about different loopholes that for kulot, leniencies that the rabbis found, which are quite instructive and interesting. So those are among the topics of tonight. All right, we are continuing the discussion of the Mishnah, and so let's look at the Mishnah once more to remind ourselves. Yesterday we spoke about cutting nails and hair, and now we're talking about the rest of these items. Godelet, which is braiding hair, kochelet, putting eyeshadow, and poseket, which seems to be, putting blush on. Rabbi Eliezer says chayav. Hachamim say shevut. It's not, there's no punishment. You wouldn't, Rabbi Eliezer says chayav, korban if you do it by mistake. Hachamim say, no, you don't bring korban. It's a category that's less than any of the melachot. In the Bavli, it's considered midrabanan. Okay, so we're going to discuss those items. All right, so here we go. Godelet. Kochelet poseket mishum mai mechayeva. We know that it says that Rabbi Eliezer says these are chayav, but because of what? What melacha does this fall under? We have the rubric of 39 melachot. Where does these fall? How do we categorize them? Amar Rabbi Abin, Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina. Godelet mishum oreget. That braiding hair is like weaving. You're weaving threads together, and so too you're weaving hair together. All right, that makes sense. Kochelet mishum kotebet. Putting on eyeliner is like writing, and actually some eyeliners actually look like pencils, right? So we can understand that. You're not writing letters, but you are writing a shape, and you want it to be like that. Poseket mishum toveh, and putting on this blush is like a spinning. It's not so clear why. It seems that they would use dough and make some stringy shape out of the dough and put it on their face, and that would make their bring out a reddish color. So something like that. All right, so that's the first opinion. Hold on, is that really the way one weaves? You're not even talking about with thread. You're not creating a cloth. This doesn't seem to be the normal way. Shouldn't be chayav. Is this the way of writing? You're not writing letters. This is not the way of spinning. So therefore, those categorizations don't make sense. Ella amar Rabbi Abhu, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina. The original statement was by Rabbi Abin in the name of Rabbi Yosef by Rabbi Chanina. So Rabbi Abu says, I heard it from him himself, and I heard a different reason, different categorization from him. And he said, Kohelet mishum sovaat. So putting eyeshadow is actually coloring. That makes more sense, which is connected to dyeing clothing. Godelet uposeket mishum boneh. Braiding is because of building. And it doesn't look like quite building bricks, but you're creating something that holds together. And somehow the same thing is for the other one that you do something with dough, and somehow that's also building. And so we ask the same question. That's not the normal way of building. Yes, it is. This is a good categorization of building because of this fascinating midrash. Kededarash Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya. Vayiben Hashem Elokim et hasela. Melamed shekilea kadosh baruch hu lechava vebi'a esel adam. Because there's a midrash when it says that God created Chava out of man's side, not only did he create her, but he also braided her hair. Hashem wanted Chava to look presentable, the first impression, and so he actually gave her a nice ponytail, which is really fascinating because we hear a lot of metaphors for Kadosh Baruch Hu being like a wife and being like a master and a king and so on. But I don't think we've ever heard before God being a woman's hairdresser. This is a new one. Okay, so anyway, that's very beautiful. But the point here is that it uses the word vayiben, that God built. And so vayiben is connected to making a braid. And also a second proof, sheken bichrache hayam korin lekal'aita binyata. In the islands, they call making a braid building. They say building a braid. And so therefore, this can be, in fact, be considered building. Okay, good. Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar omer godelet kochelet ufoseket le'atzma petura lechaberata hayevet. If one braids and puts makeup on oneself, patur, because you can't do a good job. I don't have experience, but braiding your own hair, you're not going to make it tight. It's not going to be good. So therefore, it's a weak job anyway. If you do it only if you do it for someone else, then you're doing it properly, and therefore that is chayav. It's interesting because the opposite of nail cutting and pulling out hair, where it was only if you do it to yourself, but not if you do it to someone else. Okay, so it depends on each case how things are normally done. Another statement from him, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, Isha lo ta'abir sarak al paneha mipnei she'sovat. She also should not put rouge on her face, because that would also be a form of dyeing. Tanura banan. Okay, now we get to another list of items that are also machloket between Rabbi Eliezer, who's machbir and says chayav, and Rabbanan, who say shevut. We saw the Mishnah a few things. Here are more items. These are three steps in making cheese. Cholev is milking the cow. Mechabetz is setting it to curdle. And megaben is actually putting it together and making the cheese. We'll see why. The minimal amount to violate Shabbat is a fig's worth of cheese. Mechabed, merabetz, they used to live with dirt floors. Most people anyway had dirt floors, and so they would constantly be sweeping it. And sweeping it is a problem because the dirt floors get holes in them, and then you have to make them straight, and gets very dusty. So merabetz is sprinkling water all over so that the dust will settle in the house. Reminds me of when we used to play on clay tennis courts, and you do a couple of games, then you got to go sweep the whole thing, and you got to sprinkle it, and it's like not worth playing because you got to spend 20 minutes sweeping the court. Okay, so anyway, they used to live like that in their homes. Also taking honey from honeycombs. All these things, shagag b'Shabbat hayav hatat. These are considered doraita. If you do them by mistake, hayav hatat. On Shabbat. Hezid b'Yom Tov lo ke'arba'im. Yom Tov, all the punishments for Yom Tov are less. And so if you do it on purpose on Yom Tov, that gets 40 lashes. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, all this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who considers these deoraita. Hachamim omerim, ehad zeh v'ehad zeh eno ela mishum shevut. Whether on Shabbat or on Yom Tov, all these things are only shevut. They're not part of the 39 melachot. And the Bavli would consider them only midrabanan. It's not restful, even though technically it's okay. You're not doing anything, but it's not restful on Shabbat to go get honey and to keep sweeping the floor and to make cheese. You should be involved with other things that are more appropriate for Shabbat. Okay, very good. Rab Nachman bar Guria. Okay, this is a very interesting little anecdote. Rabbi Nachman ben Guria, I couldn't find him anywhere else in Shas. This is the only place I did a search. He's not found in the encyclopedia, and I did a search for his name, and he's only found here. I would love to know more about him. Ikla le Nahar De'ah. He went to visit Nahar De'ah one time. And when he got there, the students saw him, and I guess they knew he was a great sage, so they asked him a question. Milking a cow, under what category of melacha does it fit into? It's because of milking. Milking is not allowed because of milking. That's the category. All right. Well, that doesn't explain too much. Setting milk to curd. What is that under? He said under setting milk to curdle. Each thing he says, making cheese, that's under the category of making cheese. So each thing is its own category. So the people, the students who asked him the question said, your teacher must have been someone who cuts reeds in the swamp. In other words, your teacher was not very good. He just tells you, standard, simple things that don't actually explain anything. And you should go back to your teacher and get your money back. Okay, so Ata Sha'ir Bemidrasha, and then there's this Rav Nachman. After he got that response, he goes to the Bemidrash and he asks them, I don't know, what do you think? This is what I learned. I want to learn more. Tell me. Amruleh Holev Hayab Mishum Mifarek. Milking a cow is the same as mifarek, separating, which is connected to threshing. When you thresh, you separate the wheat from the chaff, the kernel from the chaff, and so too with milking, you're separating the milk. It's inside the udder, and it's all in the fatty tissue there. And by milking, you're extracting the useful part from the not useful part. Okay, it's not exactly, it doesn't grow from the ground or anything, but it serves a similar function. Mechabetz, curdling the milk, is chayab mishum borer. You're separating the curds and the whey, and so by putting it, they put it inside the intestines that have different enzymes in there, and that would cause it to separate. So we're separating the part we want from the part we don't want, or rather the part we don't want from the part we want. Megaben, and making the cheese, that's actually building, you're putting it together and creating a solid block, a solid, and so that's why they are chayav. So now we're able to take all the steps of cheese and put them into the 39 melachot, which now fits into our general categorization. What about the original law? I mean, what was Rav Nachman bar Gudia thinking, and what was his teacher thinking? Right? Was it really just based on based on nothing, based on a reed cutter in a swamp, or is this part actually of an older tradition? I'm not sure, but I would suspect that before the 39 melachot became the standard, there is a lot of evidence that there were other ways of counting the melachot and what is considered an av. And perhaps in this system, there are not 39, but many. And all of those are considered categories among them, each in and of themselves. And perhaps only at a later time, as it become more systematized, did it come into the 39. We find a lot of machloket in Yerushalmi and Bavli. We saw some. We'll see more of controversy about how to define each of the 39 and what they are. And so perhaps this is more than a reed swamp. Perhaps this is a hint to a completely different type of categorization. So I think that could be very interesting. Okay, now back to sweeping the house. Mechabed v'merabetz v'rodeh halot ebash shagag b'shogeg hayav chatat. Hezid b'yom tov lokeh arba'im. That's a quote from the Baraita that we just saw. The Rabbi Eliezer thinks all these things are not allowed. Okay. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar, the Amora, is now commenting on what the Tana Rabbi Eliezer said. My Tama de Rabbi Eliezer. What's his reason? What's his source? Tichti v'yitbol ota beyarat devash. Why is it that taking honey from a honeycomb should be a melacha deoraita? I mean, it doesn't grow from the ground. You're just taking something that you want. It's just there. Why should it be considered a problem? So he quotes a pasuk. This is a pasuk when Yonatan takes from honey his father when they won a war, and he said no one's allowed to take from the spoils, and he made everybody swear. But his son Yonatan wasn't there and didn't hear it, and he took from the honey and caused a big problem. And so there it says he stuck his rod into the ya'arat devash. That's what it calls a honeycomb, and the word ya'ar means a forest. And so we ask, what does a forest have to do with honey? So therefore, just like if you pluck something from a forest, something that grows, that would be chayav chatat because of tolesh. So too, we consider a honeycomb as if it's growing from the ground. And that's why Rabbi Eliezer considers taking honey to be a melacha. Okay, now we get to a very, very interesting statement by Amemar. Shera zilha b'mchoza. He permitted sprinkling water on the floor in his city, where he was the rabbi of Mechoza. Mehoza was a big city. It was a suburb of Ctesiphon, which was the capital of the Sasanian Empire. And so it was a rich area. And so they asked him, "Mai ta'ama, amar ta'ama mai amur Rabbanan, dilma tel ashruye gumot, hacha lecha gumot." Amemar reasoned to himself, what's the reason that the rabbi said that you're not allowed to sweep? It's because there are holes in the dirt floor, and you might then make straight holes in a dirt floor, and then that would be a problem of building because you're creating the floor and improving it. But here he says we don't have that problem because in Mechoza they didn't have dirt floors. They were more wealthy and they had tile floors, and so tile floors is not a problem. We're not going to fill in holes, and so he said therefore that we're allowed to sweep. I mean, this is very interesting because very often we have a halacha that's based on a reason, and sometimes the reason doesn't apply anymore, or in a certain case or a certain place it doesn't apply. Does the halacha change or not? Well, that's a big question. We're not going to answer now, but Amemad here does think that this halacha depends on the reason. Amemad doesn't say this only here. There are 4 or 5 times elsewhere in Shas. Another one has to do with the laws of Shabbat. In his city, he allowed people to draw water with a water wheel. In other places, they said it's not allowed because you're going to draw so much water and water your garden. He said, around here we have no gardens. Apparently, he lived in a place like New York City, right? They didn't have any garden. You have to worry about that. And so he allowed his students to draw water. Ended up being a problem because they used it for other things, and so he had to stop it again. So sometimes it could be dangerous, a slippery slope. You allow things for one reason, then people take advantage. But anyway, here it doesn't say that he ever reversed this, so he allowed them to sweep. This is actually very important halacha l'maaseh, because nowadays, if you're in your home, I assume most of you don't have dirt floors, and so if you get some dirt on the floor after lunch and you want to sweep it up, you are allowed to. And based on this amemad, because we have tile floors. Okay, good. Rabat tosfa'a ashkahe lerabina deka mista'ed me'habla. ואמרי לה, מר קשישה ברד רבה אשכחה לרב אשה דקם יסתער מהבלה. So we're not sure which rabbi, but one of these rabbis had a problem. It was very dusty in his house, and he was coughing. He maybe had asthma. I don't know, but he was suffering from the dust in his house, and you're not allowed to put water, and so this was a problem for him. And so he needed a solution to get the dust down. And so in each case, the listener said, wait, Master, didn't you hear this baraita? That says, Haroseh lerabetz et beto b'Shabbat, mevi areba mele'a mayim, ורוחץ פניו בזווית זו, וידיו בזווית זו, ורגליו בזווית זו, ונמצא בית מתרבס מאליו, מלא לאו עדעתי. His dangerous Baraita says, if someone wants to sprinkle water on the floor, you have a way to do it. You just bring a basin of water, and you wash your hands in one place, and as you're washing your hands, the water sprinkles all over the place, and then you wash your legs in another place, and you go another corner and wash your face, and then by the time you do that, the whole room has been washed, and and you're fine. And he says, no, I never heard that. That's a great idea. And so we have a nice loophole. Like, even though the real reason you're doing this is to get the dust down, but you all are also doing something useful in washing your face. And so this is a nice loophole. Okay, Tana isha chachama merabeset beta b'Shabbat. Wise women, they used to also have another way of sprinkling their house. They would wash the dishes in different parts. Wash a couple dishes here, then move over and wash them over there, and that's how they used to do it. But now, since we follow the opinion of Rabbi Shimon in general, who says you can do an unintentional act, דבר שאינו מתכוון is allowed, so you know what, we don't have to bother using this loophole. We can just do it straight off, right? Because my intention is not to well, or at least you don't have to move around. My intention is not to fix the floor or to smooth holes. I'm not intending to build or anything. Right, that's the point. I'm not intending to smooth holes and build and all that. I just want to, I just want to be able to breathe, and so you don't have to use these loopholes. Okay, very good. So that was interesting, and seeing halacha as it's discussed, and then as it's applied in practice when it got into difficulty, and that's instructive about applying halacha also, and some practical consequences of it. Okay, very good. So now last Mishnah, hatolesh me'asis nakub hayav ve'sheno nakub patur v'Rabbi Shimon poter bazeh. Okay, asis nakub. This comes up a lot in Shas. Rabbis like to deal with this interesting case. We're talking about a pot. If it has no hole in it, we'll start with that one. Eno nakub. If a flower pot has no hole, then it's not connected to the ground. So not being connected to the ground, even though it has dirt in it and is growing something. Let's say I have I don't know what grows in a pot. Can you put an apple tree in a pot? Let's see. Let's say yes, right?
Tomato.
Tomatoes grow in a pot. Well, okay. I have some tomatoes in a pot, and on Shabbat I go in my kitchen to the pot and I take off a tomato. That is patur, right? Because it's masum midrabanan, but midoraita it's okay because it was not connected to the ground, so it's not considered planted. So that's an amazing thing. But what if it's in a pot, but the pot has a hole on the bottom? Okay, and so the hole on the bottom, even though it's in the pot, it's possible that it's drawing sustenance from the hole. Maybe some moisture from the ground is getting in there and helping the tree grow. So according to Chachamim, if it has a hole in it, a perforated pot, hayav, it's considered part of the ground. If it has no hole in it, non-perforated, then patur, then it's its own entity. The Rabbi Shimon, however, says, poter bazeh ubazeh, whether it's a perforated pot or a regular pot with no hole, it doesn't matter. It's not connected to the ground. And so if I take a tomato from it, patur, it's okay. Okay, very good. So now we're gonna spend a lot of time on Rabbi Shimon's opinion. Rameh le Abaye le Rabba, V'amri la Rabbi Chaya bar Rav le Rav. One of these sages, either these fourth generation sages or the first, or the Rav's son to him, first generation sage. We're not sure who asked who this question, but the question was a contradiction within the words of Rabbi Shimon. We just said in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon poter bazeh ubazeh, that in both cases he says you can take something from the tomato plant, and so therefore a perforated pot is like a non-perforated pot. They're both not connected to the ground. Alaman nakuv l'Rabbi Shimon keshe'eno nakuv mashveleh. Or minhu, but we have a contradiction. Rabbi Shimon omer en ben nakuv le'she'eno nakuv ella lehachshir zira'im bilvad. He says they're generally the same, but there is a difference between perforated and non-perforated, and that has to do with making things that grow tameh. So here's a general principle so we can understand this. If something is growing from the ground, let's say a watermelon, right, in the ground, it cannot become tameh as long as it is connected to the ground, right? A zav can come and sit on it, and it will still be tahor, because the ground and anything connected to the ground can never become tameh. In order for a fruit or vegetable to become tameh, it has to be plucked from the ground. It also has to become wet. That's a different story. Okay, so therefore, in this case, Rabbi Shimon makes a differentiation. If I have a perforated pot, and someone, tameh, zav, comes and touches the tomato will become tameh, because it has a perforation in the pot. It's considered connected to the ground. However, if it's a regular pot with no hole, then a zav comes and touches it, I said the opposite. If there's no hole, the zav touches it, it will become tameh. If there is a hole in the pot, it will not become tameh because it's connected to the ground. So you see here that Rabbi Shimon does distinguish between a perforated pot and one that's not, whereas in the Mishnah, he does not distinguish. He considers a perforated pot also not connected to the ground. So here's a contradiction. Truth is, in all cases, except for Tuman Tahara, he says what he says in the Mishnah. And actually, this fits with exactly with the words here. En ben nakov l'shon nakov. There is no difference between them except for tuma and tahara. So in all of the matters, he does not distinguish, and he doesn't consider the whole anything. The whole, it doesn't matter. It's not connected to the ground. But regarding tuma and tahara, shaneh l'inyan tuma da Torah ribbeta tahara esel zera'im shneimar al kol zera zerua asher yizareya. In the pasuk in Vayikra, which I will show you. It says, if a nebela, something tameh falls on anything that grows from the ground, kol zera zerua, and then it adds asher yizareya, that would be sown, tahorhu. So you see a lot of extra words, right? Asher yizareya, that extra word the Gemara is coming to say is adding something extra, that even something that normally you wouldn't consider planted is also considered planted in the ground and is therefore tahor. So there's an extra leniency in this case, and so that's why Rabbi Shimon in this case does make a differentiation and says, right, it is an extra leniency because if it's in a perforated pot, it's considered connected to the ground and will be tahor. Right, whereas if it's in a non-perforated pot, then there's nothing to do about it. It's not connected to the ground. But in all other cases, he considers a perforation to be like it's not perforated. Okay, good. So that we were able to solve that contradiction. Now, okay, still more with Rabbi Shimon. We want to understand his view a little bit deeper. How far do the roots go of his view? Shoresh keneged nekeb mali amar Rabbi Shimon. I have a question, and I know Rabbi Shimon says if there's a hole on the bottom, it's considered not connected to the ground regarding Chot Shabbat. And he says, what if the root is right next to the hole? Right, there's a hole in the bottom of the pot, and the root is right over there, right next to the hole. And would he even say in that case that it doesn't draw sustenance, even though the root's right there? Maybe it's even going through it. Would he still agree? Ishtik Rabbi Zera didn't know the answer, so he was quiet. He didn't give him an answer. It's a good question. Then a different time, Zimna Hada Ashkache Yati B'Ka'amar, a different time that elder happened to be nearby when Rabbi Zera was teaching, and Rabbi Zera said, Modeh Rabbi Shimon She'im Nikab B'Chdeh Tahorato. He said that Rabbi Shimon would agree that the flower pot, the pot with a hole, is considered next to the ground if it has a hole that's big enough that it would make the pot tahor. So as we know, a utensil can become tameh only if it is a utensil, if it's a container. If it has a hole, we'll see what size, but a big hole, let's say standard size is zayit, about an olive can fit through it. If you have a pot that has a hole the size of an olive, then it's not considered a container anymore, because what are you going to put in it? You're going to put water in it, it's going to fall out. And so therefore, if it has a hole in it, then it's considered, then in that case, Rabbi Shimon agrees that it's considered connected to the ground. Now this elder heard Rabbi Zera teach that, and he said, wait a second, if it has a hole anywhere, right, that size, it's connected to the ground, well, that should be even more obvious than my case. I asked you if the root is right next to the hole, which should be like an obvious case where that's getting sustenance, and you didn't answer me. But right, did you even have to? If you should have answered me that, why do you have to? And then you wouldn't even have to tell me about this other case, right? And you didn't tell me about this case where there's a hole and nothing about the root, any hole. Not any hole, but a hole a certain size. And so he's saying you should have taught me that, and we could have derived from the fact that Rabbi Shimon says a hole a certain size makes it connected to the ground, that we should have been able to derive that if the root is next to it, well, maybe it's a smaller hole, but okay, still if the root is next to it, it should certainly derive sustenance. So that's a question. Amar Abaye, V'itmar leha de Rabbi Zera, hachi hu d'itmar. You know what? We have to rephrase what Rabbi Zera said in order to understand it correctly. And perhaps if he said that at all, perhaps this is what he said, or this is what he meant. Umodeh Rabbi Shimon she'im nikab lemata medbi'it. When he said that the pot with a hole in it is considered to connected to the ground, he didn't say just any hole anywhere, only if the hole is near the bottom. If a hole is near the bottom, and if I put water in it, it wouldn't be able to hold even 3 ounces. Let's say it's under the pot or very low on the sides. And I put water in it and it can't even hold 3 ounces, then it's not a container at all. If it's not a container, he would say it's not a pot, it's not a utensil. And so therefore, the plant that's in it is not in a pot. It's right on the floor, right? It's not connected to the ground. And so that's the reason, independent of whether it's getting sustenance or not, it's just not a utensil. And that's the reason for that halacha. And that's why he can't connect that with the question you asked, which is a regular pot that has just a little hole, but it's still a utensil. Maybe it's higher up on the side where the hole is. And even if the root is nearby, I don't know, because this halakha was regarding the definition of utensil, and the question you asked was about sustenance. And that's why he couldn't answer the question. Okay, now that we mentioned rava and holes and sizes of holes, we get to a general principle about holes in utensils and how they make the utensil tahor. When we say it makes it tahor, it means that if it was tameh and it gets a hole, then it's not a utensil anymore, so it becomes tahor. And even if something touches it, it can never become tameh again. Okay, so we're going to introduce 5 levels, but let me just introduce the concept with an analogy. You know, we have utensils for different things, and some of them, we allow them to have holes in it. If you think of a milk crate has kind of big holes in it, but we still consider it a utensil, because if it's holding milk cartons, then as long as the hole is not big enough that a milk carton will fall through, it's still a useful item. And so holes of a pretty large size are tolerable in a milk carton. Less so in maybe a wicker basket that maybe you'll take to the beach and you'll put some items in it, a towel, suntan lotion, maybe a sandwich. It can hold things like that, but you wouldn't put water in it, right? Because that would not be a good container for water. And so that could tolerate small holes. However, a thermos, right? If it had even a small hole and it was leaking, then you would throw it out. That would not be a good utensil. So in other words, depending on the use of the utensil, that will tell us how big of a hole we can tolerate. Now, sometimes the very same item that perhaps was once used as a cup, now I'm going to use as a strainer or something, right? So I can change the use depending on my intention. Okay, so that's the intro, and now let's see how Rava applies it at lahalacha. Chamesh midot bekli chayres. This is all regarding earthenware vessels, and there are 5 levels, 5 measurements. Nikab kemosi mashke tahor miletameh gistera ve'adayin kli hu lekadesh bo yemeh hatat. Okay, the smallest hole that we can tolerate would be one where the water leaks out. The second one will be where water leaks in. What's the difference? Well, water is more likely to leak out because of the pressure from the water that's inside. It has to be a tiny bit bigger hole for water to leak in. Okay, so the tiniest hole would be a problem for a gistera. That's a coaster, right? Coaster you to put under something to catch any water that falls out, right? If a coaster, you want it to be 100% waterproof. It could be just a small shard of something that broke, but it still could be useful to put under a cup or under something leaky. But if the coaster itself is leaky, then that's no good, because you don't want to put a coaster for another coaster, right? So a coaster with even the tiniest hole makes it not a utensil and makes it tahor. However, even something that had a tiny hole in it that leaks water could be used as a cup. A cup, for example, if you have a paraduma, you need to collect the water with the ashes in a cup and sprinkle it from a cup. So it could be okay. The cup is a little bit leaky. I know for that special ritual, you only do it only a few times in history. You'd probably find a better cup. But technically, right, it can hold water well enough. And so it would be a utensil for that. Okay, so that's the first level. Now, nikab ke kones mashke, if it has a hole big enough that water enters into it, then tahor milikadesh bo mechatat. Then it can't be used as a cup anymore because that's like really leaky. So you're not going to use it for liquids. But it would be enough if you planted something in it that the roots could not come out, the sustenance couldn't be sustained, and therefore it would be useful as a pot. It would be disconnected to the ground, and anything you take from the pot, the tomatoes, would be tahor. So it is useful for planting. Now, nikab keshorish katan, if it has a bigger hole that a small root can go through the hole, then it wouldn't be useful for that anymore, and therefore tahor as a pot, but tahor melachshir bo zira'im. ועדיין כלי הוא לקבל בו זיתים. But I could still use it to hold olives because, right, the holes are only the size of a small root, but olives won't fall through. So it would be, therefore, could become tameh and as a useful utensil for holding olives. Nikav kimosi zetim, if it got bigger holes yet, that olives fell through, well, tahor bin lekabel bo zetim, and then it would be okay, it would be, in other words, not useful for holding olives, and so tahor, but I could still use it to hold pomegranates, because the pomegranates won't fall through the olive-sized holes. Nikam kimosidimonim tahor mikelum. If the holes in my vessel are so big that pomegranates can fall through, then it's really not useful for anything. And so that would be tahor totally, right? For any reason, if it has big holes like that, it's just not a utensil ever that's useful. And now furthermore, that one with big holes, imukaf samid patil ad shiftach rubo. There's another law altogether regarding earthenware vessels, that if I cover the opening of the vessel, not the holes, but the main opening, then if it's in the same room as a dead body, the tum'at met will not enter into the insides of the earthenware vessel. Right? So in general, a corpse in a room makes a ohel, and everything in the room becomes tameh. But if it's inside a sealed earthenware vessel, then anything inside there is sealed off. Now, happens to be if it has holes in it, right? So the jar itself has holes, even as big as a pomegranate. It's okay as long as the top is sealed. The tumah will not get in. Okay, so as long as it's mostly there. Unless the majority of it is broken, then that's it. It's really not a vessel for any use at all and can't protect anything. But if the majority is there, even if it has holes as big as a pomegranate, it can still protect from tumah outside of it. All right. Okay, good. So that was a little complicated, but I hope interesting. And so now we come to the next halacha. Marabi asi shamati. Okay, Rava just made these 5 levels, but not everybody agrees that there are so many levels. I mean, these levels are kind of subjective. Oh, I'm not going to use it for olives. I'll think I'll use it for pomegranates, and then it becomes a keli again. So Ravasi said, no, there's one standard. Shamati kli cheres yorek mosirimon. I heard that the halacha is that it's enough to bring out a pomegranate, and that's the only thing he heard. A tradition about that. So Amale Rava said, well, maybe I agree with you, but maybe you only heard part of the tradition. Shema lo shamata ella b'mukaf samid patil. Perhaps what you heard in context is that if it has holes the size of a pomegranate, then it's still okay, it's still useful because I can cover it and put the things inside will be protected from tumat met, from tumat ohel. Maybe that's what you heard, right? And then that way I can agree with it. And hold on, we say, can Rava really agree with that? Rava said, even if holes are bigger than the pomegranate, as long as the majority of the surface area is still there, is still clay, and the minority is holes, then it still can protect if it's covered from tumat ohel. And this statement, even if you interpret it the way Rava wants to, has to be only a pomegranate size. So there's still a contradiction. La kashya, ha berabrebe, ha bezutre. It depends how big the vessel is. If it is a small vessel, then you would need the majority to be there. If it's a big vessel, then you can follow. Then it can have lots of holes in it. Actually, you can switch these around both ways. It's not clear which one is which. But the point is that a big vessel, if it's even if it has lots of big holes in it, it's still, they're small compared to the whole thing. But a small vessel with big pomegranate holes would just be too big, even if the majority is there. So that's why that solves the contradiction. It's really dependent on the ratio. Okay, Amadav Asi Shonin. He learned that the standard amount for the standard size of holes to make an earthenware vessel not a utensil anymore is if the water goes in. It's not waterproof. And the only time we say that if the water goes out, that's really tiny holes, that only will affect the tumah status of the coasters, as we said, because my ta'ama, because no one would ever say, bring a coaster for the coaster to catch whatever falls out, right? If it's only being used for that, then you want it to work. That's got to be really waterproof 100%, so that the water doesn't go and ruin your table. But for any other purpose, a tiny little hole would be okay, even if it's for a drinking cup. All right, and now the last paragraph, Amad Ola, Peligi Batera Modaebe Ma'arava. This was just from Rava, who lives in Bavel, but in the West, in Eretz Yisrael, there's just two opinions about this. Rabbi Yosef bar Rabbi Abin Rabbi Yosef bar Zavda. Chad amar kemo sirimon v'chad amar keshorish katan. So one says the largest amount, the pomegranate, and one says one of the medium amounts, a small root, right? So they don't have all those stages, but rather one says this one, and one it's a standard amount, a standard hole, and it doesn't matter what you're going to use it for. And just to remember as a mnemonic, this is, usually we say, the original context of that is in Korban Olah. If you bring an Olah, it doesn't matter. If you're rich, you could bring a fancy animal. If you're poor, you just bring some flour. But it doesn't matter. One who brings a lot or one who brings a little, as long as they have good intention, that's the main thing. So we're borrowing that phrase here to say, one of these sages said it's a big amount, the pomegranate, which is the biggest amount, and one skipped a couple levels, skipped the olives, and went to a smaller amount and to the roots. And so that's a fun mnemonic. Amar Rabbi Hanina bar Kahana mishmed Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, different opinion that says no, it is a standard amount and it's the olive amount, not like the other opinions we just saw. And now we have a concluding halacha based on the above. לא מדברי תורה ולא מדברי סופרים, ולעניין סמיד פתיל עד שפחת רובו. So this is an interesting conclusion. If you have a utensil, a vessel made out of earthenware, and it has holes that are big, I guess according to him, bigger than an olive, or according to the other opinion, bigger than a pomegranate. If they're that big, then they're not considered a utensil anymore. And since it's not considered a utensil, it can never become tameh. That's similar to utensils that are made out of dung that's dried, or that are made out of stone. Anything made out of stone can never become tameh. That's why in archaeological sites, we find a lot of vessels made out of stone, and we know that there were observant Jews living there because that were useful because they never become tameh. So too, an earthenware vessel with holes in it is untameable, and that's very good. Furthermore, an earthenware vessel with holes in it has an even greater advantage, because you can cover the top and anything inside will be protected from tumat ohel, which is not true of non-earthenware vessels. And so here you have like the best of both worlds. And so by having this thing with holes in it, although it won't be useful for holding water or small items, you can store large items in it, and they would be protected from tumah, and the vessel itself would never be able to become tameh. And then on that happy note, we conclude the Perek Hadran Alach Hamatzniya. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.